and everyone else.
There we go. I want it red.
Yeah.
All right. Let's call the meeting to order. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
All right, roll call. Commissioner Clark? Here. Commissioner Hybels?
Present.
Commissioner Roy?
Present.
Commissioner Yun?
Present.
President Lewis?
Present.
Vice Chair Sykes?
Present.
And Commissioner Qualls? All right.
So, community forum, is there anybody wish to speak?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we do have one member of the public who is signed up for the community forum. Robert Scheusel, please approach the podium.
Good evening. I'm here speaking today and to inquire, at least at the, can you hear me now? Can you reset the clock if you're going to do that to me?
Go ahead.
I'm speaking today to inquire why POAC needs two lawyers. Last time you had two lawyers. I might suggest that Mr. Reisner be replaced by having Police Chief Ta sit on the dais as a non-voting member of POAC. The advantages include that he's the decision maker for the police department and has the ability to get things implemented. Also, being a member of POAC would send a message that the police department is partnering with POAC to help get the reform that the public wants to occur. And this is similar to when I was on the Public Safety Advisory Committee as the vice chair. We had a member of the police department, and I found that the officers' insights and ability to provide information extremely useful. It also stops the awkwardness of having a VPD representative in the audience being called on to keep coming up to the dais to speak. In the remaining time, I wanted to reiterate some advice I had previously given this committee. First, members of POAC need to be very careful what they say in public places. And this is my feeling. If it can be used against you, it will by someone. Assume that anything you say outside of POAC, even off the record, will become public. You represent POAC, and this is how the public will see your remarks, not as an individual, but as what the committee stands for. You also need to be cognizant of perceived conflicts of interest. For example, I disagree with the advice given to you about socializing in a group. While it may be allowed technically, I don't think it's advisable, as some of the public will interpret it as an illegal POAC meeting that excluded the public. And I speak as a former chair also of the Planning Commission. We had the same problem. My advice also is to avoid events, comments, etc., that in any way could be seen as either pro or anti-police or in any way having to do with the areas of POAC's responsibility. When asked about things to do with POAC or police conduct, refer the person to the chair or the city council liaison. You should never make responses to those kinds of questions. And finally, some of you are acting like placeholders and not contributing. You were selected because our community expects you to be their representative and make positive change. You need to be an active participant and not act like a bump on a log. Thank you.
Through the chair, we do have one more speaker for community forum online. Carol Heap, please unmute yourself. You have the floor.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I just got my phone to work. Um, so my name's Carol Heppy, and I was with the committee with Mr. or Dr. Cecil back in 2012, I think it was. And so I too share a lot of his concerns, and of course, the concern he just rose commented about to be careful about what you say in public with regard to the business of POAC. Perception is as important as actuality. So whether you're breaking uh, a transparency rule or not, if it is perceived that you violated it, then that's as important as whether you do or not. So just be concerned about what you say in public. We did have an incident, so this isn't, this is something you are already aware of and need to be conscientious of going forward. There is an item on the agenda, but I didn't think I wasn't sure it was specific enough to my initial concern here. And that is, I've been reviewing the statistics that the police department's keeping online and, looking for best practices and transparency. And information that's online for the police department looks pretty good as far as police complaints. I did have one concern that I wanted to raise, and I think the commission should be aware of and review and consider. It looked like, just looking at last year's complaints, now it records that there were only, I think it was 7 complaints that were from exterior complaints from citizens. And statistically, it showed that of those complaints, even though there weren't that many, over 80% of the ethnicity of the complainant was either Black or Hispanic. And I'm pretty sure that Blacks and Hispanics do not make up 80% of the population of Vallejo. So I think you want to look into that and see if there's maybe a problem that needs to be addressed there. And you might also put the percentage of the population each ethnicity represents in Vallejo on the statistics, on that section of the statistics.
Time.
My time's up, so
Thank you.
That wraps up the speakers for the community forum, Chair.
Okay, so on to the consent calendar and approval of the agenda.
You can ask the commissioners whether there's a motion. You can ask commissioners whether there's a motion to approve the agenda, have a second, and we can have a vote on it.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
That was a motion for the agenda. We'll also have a motion for the minutes in a second. But regarding the agenda, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
So on to the report of the presiding officer and
One other thing before we move on. Motion for the approval of the minutes. We approve the agenda now. If you would like, you can.
make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Great, passes unanimously. Thank you.
Okay. So this is, I'd like to speak some about the people that have contacted me about the meeting that we had last month. And a number of people have talked to several people about it. And one person sent me a very lengthy email, very, very positive, talking about the importance of the commission, and what she pointed out was that she'd watched the meeting online, and it gave a very different impression of the meeting than those of us that were in the room, because the camera was on one end of the dais, which had city staff, and there were other commissioners that were behind the post, and that was a concern to her, and it was just an optics thing. It made it look like this was a meeting of the city and not of the Oversight Commission. And I thought that was a valid point. If we were going to meet in the Vallejo room again, we should rearrange the furniture so that we'll put you guys behind the post. She also pointed out that watching it, and I watched the meeting online to see what she was talking about, the city logo is at the bottom of the screen, and it blocks she couldn't see the name tags because of that city logo, and and that could be changed, I would think. I rewatched some of our trainings from a year ago because I'd completely forgotten most of what I learned, and there was a discussion at the meeting about the Brown Act, about the commissioners getting together to meet on a social basis, and a couple of people came to me and expressed concerns about that, and so I rewatched the video on the Brown Act, and actually I called my brother, who used to be a mayor and is an attorney, and he said we absolutely have the right to meet in a social setting, as long as we don't talk about current events. So I do want to, before we leave here today, I want to get together and see if we can find a time that would work for people to get together, because we do need to get to know each other. So I just wanted to say that. And the thing is, it's been years that we have been on this commission, and we're meeting, and I really want to say that we are up and running. The portal is open. If anyone out there has a input for us, you can go to the city compliment and complaint portal, and if you have a question, we are fully up and running. We're good to go. So by all means, if you have something to say, this is your chance. We want to hear your feedback. So that's what I have to say. Thank you. Anybody else have comments? So, and we don't have the liaison to the council here. Oh, is she here? There you are. Please tell us what you think.
Good afternoon, everyone. So just to start, if you all can just make sure you speak in your mics so that we can hear you, because we can barely hear you. So that's really important. I know you're getting used to it. And I just want to say up front, you all look so wonderful sitting here. And I am really pleased. I want to thank our city attorney. I want to thank our city manager for working with the council to move this commission forward. And it's taken all of us to make this happen. And so I just want to thank you. And I am pleased to say, just like our chair, we are up and we're running. The portal is working. And so they are here for business. And I look forward to the work that you all will do together and that I will have an opportunity to do with each of you. So thank you for your commitment. Thank you for enduring the time that it has taken for us as a city government to move this commission forward. And we have done it, and we are making progress. And I am expecting us as a commission, as a city government, to really, again, help move our city forward as it relates to policing, safety, and safety encompasses many things. And so this is just one component of the work that we need to do on that stool, that leg, for safety. So congratulations, and thank you for also taking the time to get to know one another. It really is important. So do that. Again, I'm happy to be here. I've told you last week or last month, if you need me, you can call me. The chair and vice chair know that. I sat with them and city attorney and deputy city attorney and our clerk in shaping our agenda, shaping our budget. So I am present and I am engaged. And I will be here at each of your meetings unless something else is occurring that is just a total conflict. But thank you again. And I want to again thank our city manager as he is serving as our secretary. And I know eventually he'll turn that over and we'll continue to move forward with all the work that we need to do. Thank you.
Do we want to just say on the record where the portal is and how community members can access it? Just stating that in this meeting, how folks can access the portal to register a complaint or a comment?
Sure. Multiple ways. One of the things that we had made a request for, and I think it's live, but we will need to check it, is so this commission has a section under boards and commissions on the city's regular website. That contains some information, including each of your email addresses. If it does not now, it will soon, because the quick request went in, for the information on the complaints and compliments portal to also be put there as a link. So if someone went to the page for boards and commissions, they could click on that link and it would take them directly to that portal that you were just talking about. There is also a second page that has a bunch of information that includes all of your past meetings, the videos for all of your trainings, a lot of information about when the ordinance was originally developed. That is myvallejo.com/POAC, P-O-A-C, which also contains links for public information for the public, including, it will, if it doesn't already, also contain that link to the portal. It doesn't yet, or it does? It does. It does already contain. And then the third way, of course, is directly through the police department's website if you search it that way. So it's out there in many different forms as a link, so that even if the public doesn't go to, different people might go to different areas on the web to find it. What IT tried to do was to make sure that it was available in all of those spots, so that it wouldn't be dependent on somebody choosing the correct one.
So anybody could just could go to that link, it could send directly to any of our email addresses.
Your email addresses are also hyperlinks, so if you go down the email address and you were to click on it, it would hyperlink, depending on your browser, but it would hyperlink to your email as well. Or they could copy and paste it. But yes, that works, as well as then going to the complaints and compliments portal itself works. They all end up in the same place. So if you were to submit a complaint to an email, that ends up getting loaded into the portal so it can be tracked. But it's also true that if you were to submit one to the portal, it gets transmitted to the commission in a format we'll talk about later tonight, because we have a couple on the agenda tonight, so.
Thank you. So the report of our secretary.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Just a few things. We have been building out a website that we want to establish as the one-stop clearinghouse for all POAC information. City Attorney Nebb provided the the URL for that, www.myvallejo.com/POAC. We'll send out some more public communication about that this week. And that has, it's a little bit of a mirror of the POAC page under our boards and commissions structure. So we're trying to establish kind of a no wrong door way to get information. The commission had at its last meeting a conversation about some informational materials that you all would find useful and think the public would find useful. So we'll continue to build out the website with those materials. So your email addresses are all up and running. They're being shared, as we discussed at the last meeting, with the 3 city staff people that are involved in the POAC. The complaints and compliments form is live from that site right now. And then a couple other things that you had mentioned are some public-facing informational materials about how the complaints process works, what happens when somebody submits a complaint, what the normal follow-up process is. So we're continuing to build all of those. We'll also establish a standardized email signature and footer for you all that will be rolling out soon. So all of those things that you discussed. Those are my updates for this evening.
Thank you. Attorney's report.
Just one quick one. It's just some information. The one additional piece, well, a couple additional pieces, but one's actually an action item or a discussion item on the agenda. But the other piece, just for the information of the full commission, had shared it with the chair and vice chair. But for the full commission, we are looking to reissue the RFP for the independent auditor services. So that's the IPA. We're looking to reissue that in February through the city manager's office. And then ultimately, you will have input into that process. And then the city manager will make that selection, and then that additional resource will also be up and running once we have a contract, hopefully sometime in March. So just a little update on that. If those move at all due to, responses, et cetera, then staff will collectively let the commission know what those revised dates look like, but that's the plan for now.
Okay, so moving on to the action calendar. Update regarding the retention of outside legal counsel.
So just a brief update on that. We had talked about it at the last meeting, and something that we said that we were going to begin that process, having your budget item and going forward on mid-year, which we'll talk a little bit more about that item on a later agenda item. We are already reaching out to get a availability list of someone who can fill that role as needed for things such as complaints, reviewing investigations and recommendations, and then your annual report. Some help could be provided there. So those would be the minimum services that we would be looking for. Again, commission will have input into that process or into that selection, and we will be bringing that forward at a later meeting after we have a list to bring forward to you. So just a little update there so you know. Probably on a similar timeline as the IPA, just to let you know what we're looking at. So we're trying to move those items forward as quickly as we possibly can.
Okay, so moving on to where we at the discussion of the budget for the commission.
Through the chair, we have a member of the public that wanted to speak on that item. On A. Robert Scheusel, please approach the podium.
I believe that the city attorney and her staff should not be allowed to participate in the selection of an independent attorney and auditor for POAC, even though the ordinance allows her a role in the selection. The city attorney stated that a member of her staff who is not involved in litigation could be selected as a lawyer for POAC. But I think there's a perception that there's a conflict of interest. This perception is that in a small office, no member of the city attorney's staff can be truly unbiased if part of their investigation may involve their boss, who can fire and hire them. POAC should play a major role in the interviewing process and actual selection, not the city attorney. POAC's members need to be able to feel that the person will be a good fit and easy to work with, and that the people that they hire report to them and city council, not staff. That's the way you become independent. A decision needs to be made whether VPOA is allowed to be involved with the interviewing process. You might want to consider that. Monthly updates should be absolutely required until the independent lawyer and auditor are chosen, so this doesn't go into a dark hole. I'd like to talk briefly why we need an independent legal counsel. In many of our minority communities, there's a lack of trust that City Hall really wants any real police reform. This is reinforced by disclosures of badge bending, excessive use of force, withholding of evidence that was never prosecuted, and the watering down of the ordinance that created POAC. The final ordinance version took away most of your power and independence. You need to read the initial drafts and see what you ended up with. The current process, which involved over 2 years of meet and consent, is just another confirmation for many of the minority communities about the lack of commitment to real reform. There's also perception that conflict of interest exists if a city attorney and any of her staff has involvement with POAC. And I would say at the very least, a perceived conflict of interest would exist if the city's office participated in the selection process for an independent attorney. The public needs to have assurances that the people selected are truly independent of any influence from City Hall and staff. And I would say that this appearance of a conflict of interest is maybe more important than what the law allows. And I think you need to be very sensitive to the way things look. Thank you.
Thank you.
And through the chair, we do have one other member of the public that would like to speak that's online. Carol Hepe, please unmute yourself. You have the floor. Carol, it looks like you have removed your audio source. If you want to try to log in with your audio source again. Okay, hand has been lowered. Feel free to carry on with the agenda.
Okay, so item 10B, the discussion of proposed budget for the commission. This was discussed or referred to at our last meeting, and from the records I've been keeping, there are a few different categories of expenditures that the commission, I think, would like to see considered by the city council as part of the mid-year process. And of those discussed, they are memberships for each of you in Nicole. The Nicole annual conference, as was discussed at the last commission meeting, is in November, so the expense for participation in that probably can be in next year's budget, which would be effective July 1st. But we, of course, want to get your memberships up and running right away. So potential budget items are Nicole membership, the cost of other trainings. Police Chief Taw suggested some additional trainings. that you all can consider, and so some of those have costs associated with them. There's going to be a budget needed for outside counsel, depending on how that ends up being structured. There's going to be budget needed for the IPA, of course, and there's been some discussion of providing some publications and guidebooks for you all to reference if you would like. And then finally, depending on how the conversation and discussion goes later today, potentially a budget for some consulting from Rania, which is an item. So those are the budget items. I'm happy to work with Chief Taw and the City Attorney's Office to come up with some numbers for those things. But please let me know if you think there are other expenditure buckets that you think should be accounted for in the midyear. Are there any that I missed?
Is there any other discussion on the budget? So let's move on to the discussion regarding the engagement of...
Through the chair, we have another member of the public that would like to speak on this item. Robert Scheusel, please approach the podium.
I'll just make this very brief. If no one knows what City Council is willing to spend, is the discussion tonight going to be about a dream list or a bare bones needs? And I think you need to articulate what it is you want. And you need to make this very clear. And I think you must specify what are the things that are the most critical and put them in some kind of order. I mean, I think that some of the things might be nice, but you just can't afford them. And I think that there's things that the city manager has already mentioned, I guess really the secretary for this meeting, things like an independent auditor, lawyer, training, conference, staff support. And I think that you first need to get an estimate of what each of those types of things would cost you, the way you envision them, and then come back with estimates and order it out, and also get a commitment from City Council that they're willing to spend at least X. I think if you don't know that, you're going to go in circles. I forgot to hand out my last talk, so let me give that also to the secretary to hand out.
We did discuss with the city attorney and what these items are. It's a little difficult to estimate just what our needs are going to be, but I know that I've gotten assurances that we will have the funds necessary to, obviously, once we get involved in doing investigations, we have to hire investigators, independent investigators, and those kinds of things. And those are the main expenses, and given that we don't know how many investigations we're necessarily going to be doing, why it's a little hard to estimate. But I've been assured that we will have the funds necessary.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, investigations are actually already budgeted through the current budget, because independent investigations are already done pretty much very often. Mm-hmm. So I think the question for, as we go out with the RFPs, for instance, the IPA and an outside attorney, the most important piece is that they meet the qualifications of the ordinance. And we may get, differing proposals with differing, per hour dollar amounts. So I think, we can do I'll call it an estimation or a guesstimation about what those may look like. Particularly, we know what we are paying outside attorneys for a whole host of things, and there's kind of a general range. And we can look at, an estimation of hours, but no matter how we look at it, it's still going to just be an estimate initially. The council, I think, is aware of that. We've had numerous discussions about how, when we budget for these things, just like relative to the city. We can't know how many times the city gets sued and how much outside help we need or if we need expert help until it happens, and then we have a general budget that we draw from. And if, in fact, it exceeds that general budget, then there's a budgetary ask that has to happen with the council. I think the plan that your secretary/city manager outlined is really one that we will make those educated, I hate to use the word guess, but educated estimates of what those will cost. Obviously, we have to look at the Nicole membership for the upcoming year, see what that cost is, and whether or not we can do a group membership or whether it has to be individual memberships. He mentioned that. These are all fixed things that we can look at. The question before you this evening is, are there asks you wish to add to the budget? Again, they're asks, and I think, staff has prioritized the things that are written in stone in the ordinance that must be there. So the Nicole membership, yes, that's in the ordinance. Council, IPA, additional trainings are also in the ordinance as designed by the chief of police. So some of those are bookended, just solid into the ordinance. But you have the discretion to ask for other things you think could be helpful. And certainly if you have those asks, staff knowing about it now will help staff to price it and then carry that forward to the council as part of your budget ask.
So, Ms. Nebb, I have a question for you. And this goes back, it goes back to actually item 10A with regards to the IA and the attorneys. So you mentioned something about POAC would be involved in that process. So what does that fully look like when you talk about that?
Right.
Can
So
you
under
be more specific?
Absolutely. So
Thank you.
under the ordinance, we bring forward several different things, but one of them we bring forward is the suggestions for outside counsel. We'll use that as an example, or the IPA. So we'll be receiving those proposals for the IPA as a for instance back. And the ordinance requires for the IPA, the city manager, for the outside counsel, myself, to confer with and take the input of the board relative to that selection. So you are involved deeply in that process as we bring that forward for an action item.
So can one suggestion be that the person may be considered outside of the county as a consideration?
It certainly could. I'm trying to remember for the IPA whether they have to be here within a certain amount of time. I'd have to look that up, but I believe that can be a consideration that you are requesting we take a look at it. If it does not conflict with the ordinance, then the answer to your question is, of course. That can be one of the things that could make somebody potentially score higher and therefore be higher up the potential selection list if you're looking for someone who has, I would say, no experience here. The flip side of that, when the council considers it, is that if they're coming in person, and the IPA sometimes is because they have roles within the ordinance that they, for instance, can be direct observers to certain things, then you have to think about how long does it take them to get here, and are they cut off from being a direct observer as a result of how long it takes them to get here? Or are they, how much additional does it add to the budget for travel time? Those are not necessarily disqualifying interests, but they may be something that you may want to think about in making your selection or suggestion, and that the council may need to weigh when, deciding what the budget looks like.
Yeah, and the reason why I asked...
But you're free to ask for whatever. Nobody's putting guardrails on you or asking, other than the guardrail of what the ordinance actually says. Nobody's putting guardrails on your requests.
Yeah, and the only reason why I make that request is sometimes it's good to have outside eyes looking at what's going on here in Vallejo.
Yep.
So that's why I made that ask.
Makes
Thank
sense.
you.
Yeah.
And I have a question as well. Is there an estimated time when we're going to receive this budget? Has it been planned for you guys to go over that ask and let us know how much we're actually dealing with as far as the budget is concerned, so that we can move the process forward, versus just talking about some date in the future? Has there been a time established for you guys to discuss the budget and how much we're going to be able to receive to move forward?
For a second. Thank you for the question. So these requests for additional budget for this fiscal year for the POAC are going to be bundled with other requests for other city functions that'll go to the city council as part of what we call the mid-fiscal year process. And I think that will go to the city council at the second meeting in February, so February 24th, and the city council can make decisions. We have a two-step council process for fully authorizing new appropriations like that. But if the city council approves them, then they'll be fully authorized by the first meeting in March, so pretty soon.
Just very quickly, I just had a couple questions. Is there any interest, and this is kind of polling with the other commissioners, for a membership to the IACP as well, for the International Association of Chiefs of Police, as either a membership that can be provided for kind of like a listserv? I know that they have an annual conference as well. And the other question that I have is, are we budgeting at all for public outreach? It wasn't one of the things that was mentioned in the list of items potential. And I think it's also difficult for us to figure out what items we need because we haven't gone through the process yet. And so I think it's very difficult for us to formulate what potential future items we may need. So I think my next question then is, how will we be able to get those resources as we go? Because you do have a mid-year budget, you do have to get that finalized, and then there's the annual budget. So I think understanding that process would be helpful for us so that we can kind of timely figure out what additional needs and funds we would need.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I don't know the requirements for a membership in IACP, but we're happy to look into that and find out whether you as individuals or the commission as a collective can be members, and we'll cost that out for you. Yeah, I completely understand the position of not knowing exactly what you might need because this is getting up and rolling. We try to batch our requests for budget changes in this mid-year process, but the city council can make appropriations at any time during the fiscal year. There's not going to be a ton of the fiscal year remaining, by the time they approve any POAC-related appropriations at the first meeting in March. But if something really pressing came up, staff could take that back to the city council at any time. It's not restricted. And then right away, starting very soon, we're all going to be working on the development of next fiscal year's budget. So we'll have a similar conversation pretty soon to find out about new asks. But you don't feel like you have to have all the answers right now because you're still getting into the swing of things. You can make requests at any time during the year.
And then, sorry, last one is also additional training for the commissioners. Oh, for the additional trainings for the commissioners, I know we've kind of paused and now we're starting back up, but I assume there's additional training that we need to do in regards to investigations, the IA process, and all of those items.
So those were the items that the chief discussed at your last meeting a little bit. I know the deputy chief is here this evening and has an item on the agenda for discussion with the commission. But as he builds that additional training program, and they talked about a few items, including some of the training that the police department receives on those topics, so that you have the information and know what the information that departmental members receive on some of those topics was listed on that list. The chief was going to see what those costs were with post, and those would be something that would be also included within the commission's budget. So that's I thought we touched on that at the last meeting, but it might not have been as clear.
I just wanted to circle back on Commissioner Yun's question about community outreach in the budget. I think it's a great point, given that we're new and that all the interest from the community. And yeah, I don't know if that's something that we already have built-in funds for. If we could add that to the request.
Yeah, we haven't discussed a budget for community engagement and outreach. You all can add that to the list. You all have access, and we'll be sharing information about your activities through our regular communications channels. But if you all wanted to do something separate and additional, that might take the form of a special form of publication, or let's say you wanted to host some community events and you wanted, provide refreshments for members of the public or anything like that. Those are all things that we can request appropriations for. Some of those things are relatively low cost compared to some of the other things, like sending the full commission, say, to training or to a conference. So you also don't have to itemize everything. If there are de minimis expenses for certain things, the budget can probably absorb those over the course of the year. But if you right now have any thoughts about some outreach and communication activities or materials that you'd like to see us include, please let us know now and we can do that.
Just wonder if we might want to host, like a forum or like an engagement session that might be outside of the, any civic properties. So if we needed to have a venue fee or, like you mentioned, refreshments to really, hear from community and remain, impartial. I could see that there could be some expenditure associated with that. I take your point that it would probably be nominal compared to some other things that we're discussing. And yeah, I guess without knowing exactly how that sort of like, small budget event function would work, I guess that's kind of why I think it's a good thing to address.
I still think it's worthwhile if you all want to have it added to the list for costing, because it'll also prompt us and serve as a reminder that that's something that you're all interested in. So if it's the will of the commission, happy to do some costing of what that would involve.
And just to add to that, the costing that's involved is like sometimes, and I know we push the community to go to websites and computers and things like that, but there are people who are just not comfortable. So we need to have paper available for people in different languages that they can utilize. So that's going to a cost to consider as well.
Yep, happy to cost those things, both for what would be required for an off-site town hall, essentially, or I don't know what exactly we want to call it, and collateral printed materials. Sure.
And you can add business cards to that as well.
I believe your business cards have been ordered already and just aren't ready. Name tags and business cards, so those are already budgeted for.
I just want to take us back really quickly. I think it's 10A, and to Vice Chair Sykes' point, and to bring in Attorney Nebb. While I think we can go a little deeper as it relates to what are some of the creative ways that this commission can really engage in the process of bringing in an internal auditor and bringing in the external attorney. And so some of the things that we have done is determining if you can then actually be responsible as a team to review the RFP and do the scoring. So there are ways that fundamentally you can own the process. And so I would ask that our city attorney speak to that, and as well as be prepared to do some of that work so that you're able to see that you really do have a lot of latitude and control to determine based on certain protocol and process that must take place within the government environment to actually choose your independent auditor, to choose your independent attorney. So it is possible to do that.
Thank you. To the extent that we're looking at putting out the IPA's RFP, within the month of February. You will not have another regular meeting in February, but if the commission is interested in looking at the request as opposed to what turns back in, no problem with that. It's totally okay. We certainly can, you will be having a special meeting at some point in February. That's on the future agenda items, agenda item number 12 this evening to talk about for a few minutes. We could add that item when we get to future agenda items if you'd like to have that, the RFP itself, the request, come before the commission at that special meeting in February. That can be one of your items on that agenda. After the public comment on all of the other stuff that, or the one other thing that will definitely be on that agenda. So if the commission is interested in that, certainly your liaison spoke to the question of giving input on the, I'll call it pool, for lack of a better word, that we would be looking at. And absolutely, that is the absolute intent for you to give the input on that pool. You will essentially have the opportunity to review what we get back, the opportunity to look at some of the experience, et cetera, and give your recommendation/input into that process. So we're happy to have your thoughts on that when the time comes and we have those back.
I have a question. If I understood you correctly, you're saying the RFP will be done this month? Is that correct?
That was the
IA?
intent. We had put one out, I don't know if the commission remembers, but before we got the big, what I called the big pause, as a result of the PERB case, we had actually put out an RFP for the independent auditor. And so we have that work that was already previously done. So if the commission, we can even send it to you earlier than your meeting so you have some time to spend with it. And then if you have input on it, you get that input back to us. Yes, the intent is in February. Yes,
Yeah, I
ma'am.
think it would be good because sometimes if we're looking at a close timeline and we're getting stuff at the last minute, it won't give us an opportunity to thoroughly review it and give our feedback. It'll feel like it's rushed. And one of the things we don't want to do is rush these things to make sure we have all eyes are on the RFP so we can give you our feedback and our thoughts and suggestions and ideas.
That request for proposals comes out of the city manager's office, so I'm sort of speaking for him. Sorry, I shouldn't have done that. But are you okay with, I assume you're okay with the commission getting a preview of that RFP?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Through the chair, we have a member of the public that would like to speak on this item.
All right.
Carol Heppy, please unmute yourself. You have the floor.
Oh, hello again. I think I'm going to ask for permission to speak on 10A because I got disconnected on my end. And it sounds like other people have gone back to 10A. So is it okay if I speak on 10A?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, so just on the RFP, I think the commission absolutely needs to be involved in what that RFP is requesting. Police prosecutions are extremely specific areas of the law. Very few attorneys practice in the area of police accountability, suing the police, whatnot. So you really need to get down in the dirt about what it is you want from an attorney, from an auditor. They should have police prosecutorial backgrounds. They need to know the intricacies of litigating police misconduct actions. And I just can't stress that enough. Somebody with human relations background, a district attorney, those should be just disqualified. It's a needle in a haystack, but you got to find the right person, or we're not going to have justice in this town. So you need to make sure that the RFP is specific to what you want. Somebody with police prosecutorial backgrounds, somebody who's actually sued the police in the past. And I think every one of you needs to be involved in that. And the city attorney can review it, but she should not have the last say. You guys need to really get into that. Dr. Shesso talked to you about transparency when it comes to choosing an attorney. And everything he said you should take to heart. I've worked with him on these issues before. He's very informed. It's just wonderful. He's sharing his experience and knowledge with y'all. And I think you ought to just use him as a civilian resource, since he's willing to be there. And I won't be surprised if he's not at every one of your meetings. I will be. He gave you a lot.
Federally prosecuted, then it happens through the Department of Justice or the Attorney General's office. If there is, misconduct that rises to those levels, that is not something that we do internally, regardless of who the individual is, whether it's our office or anyone else. That's not actually the way that happens and is not a function under the ordinance. So just wanted to make sure nobody misunderstood what that role is. It's an advisory role on the things that are within commission purview. It isn't a role of independent prosecutorial authority.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. That's important.
I do have, as we're talking, more and more thoughts are coming to my mind. So one of the things that you mentioned is selecting an attorney and the commissioners involved. Can we score the people that you're looking at for contractual purposes? I mean, it's saying that it sounds like you have the final say, but as we should be able to score who you're looking at.
Absolutely. The commission can use whatever process you would like for your input, and we don't have any qualms about that. So if you want to do a scoring, if you want to have some background information that is in excess of, like you'd like some questions answered, etc. Whatever it is that the commission would like to have, we will certainly make sure you have that. Whatever it is you think you need to give your recommendation and your input is all welcome.
I know it's going to be a lot of work for the commissioners, but I am thinking of the community in terms of fairness and equity.
Absolutely.
So I think as much input as we have in the process, we are representing the community in this case. The other thought that came to my mind, and this is related to the budget, there's two items.
I was just going to say, and that also applies to the IPA.
Okay,
although
IPA as well.
That
Yes.
sits somewhere else, but I think it's the
Yeah,
same thing.
it would be
Whatever
fair to do both.
input you want to provide.
Yeah.
Yes.
The other thing that comes to my mind, and it did cross my mind and I forgot to bring it up, was looking at the budgets of other cities, neighboring cities, or cities in the Bay Area that have police commissions. What do their budgets look like? And how we can use that as an example or a guideline on how to establish the budget here for the city of Vallejo. I know it may be a little difficult. I know I think Antioch's police commission is still up and operational. I know City and County in San Francisco. I think Oakland just got their
Antioch's is
budget.
very narrow as to what they look at. It's much narrower than ours. By comparison, you have others that are broader or who have 10 times the number of officers that I'm exaggerating maybe a little bit, but a lot more officers and therefore a lot more incidents. But I think it provides a relevant input point. I certainly wouldn't say it's irrelevant. I would just say it's hard to compare across different ordinances, different types of ordinances, and then the size of the department, those all play a factor in, I would say, volume. I don't know how else to really put it, but volume.
Yeah, I'm not looking so much as the number of officers and the volume, but just more of a foundational part of it to look at how their budget was established, because I know there are cities bigger than ours.
Right.
But just as a template, so to speak, on what they put in their budget and so on and so forth. And finally, regarding the budget piece that add to the list, windbreakers with the word POAC on the back. Windbreakers, like, jackets, not raid jackets, but jackets, so to speak, like we're out in the community, because we're getting cards and badges, but having a windbreaker, that's part of the budget process.
Yep, happy to cost that.
Thank you.
So the next item, is there any public comment on the next item, which is engagement of Rihanna Adawan to provide support and Police Oversight Accountability Commission?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I started a 2-minute timer for interested parties to sign up for this item. In the meantime, we also have a member of the public that has already signed up for this item. Robert Scheusel, please approach the podium.
Just for the Commission's edification also, Ms. Adwan is actually online and in attendance at this meeting. If you wanted to have her speak or speak to her about her experience with other commissions, or maybe maybe the public might be interested in that as well. So
I'll try to make this brief. I think Ms. Adwan should first have a meeting with the chair and vice chair, or a subcommittee appointed by the chair about potential topics. Too often staff decides everything, and I think they leave out the other views, and that's been a problem with some of the committees and things that I've been on. Whatever you come up with as an initial list, it should be advertised for input among the committee and the community, and then the final list voted upon by the entire committee. While staff should have input, the final decision should lie with POAC, not staff. And I think in the past that's not occurred. I would hope that you could set a precedent. I would note that I've previously supplied lists of speakers to POAC on relevant subjects. For example, you need to know about the Police Bill of Rights. It's critical to this committee. I have included the names of attorneys who are experts in this area who could come and speak to you. This could be integrated into Ms. Adwan's topics that she presents. And I would add that in my experience, I was able to get all of these people free. They didn't even charge for mileage or anything. So think out the box a little bit. I'll resend my list of speakers and things, but please take advantage of them. Thank you.
Thank you.
No other speakers at this time, Chair.
So as the Commission's aware, all of those trainings, including the one that was just discussed, have been provided by outside experts when you undertook your original training. So you have received that level of overview. To the extent that we dig, the Commission wants to dig any deeper, you would potentially have Ms. Adwan as a resource to help find any additional deeper training, etc. Again, you had to have your basic level and confirm that you had attended those trainings to be here even tonight. So as you're aware, those were not taught. I mean, we did the Brown Act and the Public Records Act and an overview of the ordinance, but experts were brought in for all of the other trainings who do practice in that field. So just wanted to make sure that the public understood that, because you didn't have a lot of public in attendance at those training sessions. It was all of you, for sure, but you didn't have a lot of public there, so didn't want the public to think that you had no expert advice in the conduct of the trainings that you have received.
Thank you. So is there any other discussion on trainings?
We're still talking about 10.
What are we?
We're still talking about about engaging.
Yes.
I have a question, and Rania, I believe you were here as well. If we were to engage you, what kind of level of support would you be giving to the commission, and what would your capacity be?
Manny, you'll need to promote her so she'll be able to respond.
She's able to speak.
Okay.
Oh, I think. Hello, can you hear me?
There you go, Rania. Yeah, we can hear you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's so lovely to see you all, and you all look so good on that dais. Welcome. Well done. I'm trying to answer the question. Okay, just so I understand the question, what level of support and what might it look like? Is that the question?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, fantastic. Thank you. So you've kind of experienced a little bit. So I've looked after or managed the San Francisco Police Commission. I've done the Oakland Police Commission. And then in the last couple of years, as an independent contractor, I've looked after a few others nationally, Albany in New York, Dearborn, Michigan. More importantly, what I do for you. One of the things that I do for a living and have done and have focused on for the last 10 years is helping commissioners like yourselves figure out what to do and how to do your job. So one thing that we might do together is I understand that you are ready to look at policies. So the department has revised the complaint policy, and I believe it's ready for your review and input. And that also means that you will need a moment or some kind of community input, right? Some moment where you explain to the community what's going on in the policy, and then you facilitate a discussion and you kind of get public input or community voice into the policy, and then you consider your revisions. So I would help you develop that whole process. We mentioned in the trainings, if you remember, ad hocs. That's one tool that commissions work so that you don't have to worry too much about the quorum, but you are nimble enough to do the work, and public are still involved. So everything is very transparent. Other ways that I might be able to help you is to point out how often we can ensure transparency. So one of the things that we discuss in your training is trying to make sure that even if the public doesn't get to see a piece of information because of the law or regulation, or that you explain that we use every tool available to us to also educate the community as to what the constraints are, what the conditions are, why they're seeing it this way and why they're not. So that's another piece that we can be looking at together. And by all means, I absolutely, to the community member that spoke earlier, I think, I don't want to butcher his name, but we did meet. One thing that we can do is also, I would meet with the chair and vice chair, talk about things that are on your agenda, that's on your mind, and actually just brainstorm with you, right? So consider me as, or whoever's in this position, a strategist, advisor, with experience in this, but also I've got experience from the private sector, so I kind of beg, steal, and borrow from both and bring it into the public sector space. I'm rambling. I hope that's also answered your question in that ramble, though.
Yes, thank you. I think it's really helpful, especially to kind of understand what we're engaging in. I was quite pleased with Ranya's presentations, and I think she's a great resource. So I don't know if anyone else has input, or we can make a motion. But.
And I do want to echo the same thing that Commissioner you was saying, that Rania was a great resource. She put us through our paces. She did interactive engagement with us. She kept us sharp. She asked us difficult questions that forced us to think. And she's a good tool. Just based on what she said, she's been all over the country: Michigan, New York, San Francisco, Oakland. I learned a lot from her. So she would be a great asset to this commission.
can I just ask how this would, I echo all of the other commissioners' sentiments so far and the vice chair's sentiment about Rania. How does this interact with the discussion we've already had about budget? Obviously, there's some discussion about training in the budget. I'm assuming the retention of Rania would impact the budget as well. Yeah, I mean, like, 2 thumbs up. Would love to continue to work with her and receive additional training and additional support from her. How does that factor into the budget conversation?
Yeah, it was a item that we listed as one that we would cost for you all. I think as Rania described and as you all have expressed, there are probably a lot of different things that she could provide that would be useful. So I think the next step would probably be a conversation with the chair and vice chair and Rania, the secretary, to talk a little bit more about what might be the most impactful types of support she could provide, and we could, if time permits, if there's another meeting before the mid-year process, we can bring that back to the commission and get your feedback on that. Otherwise, we can come up with a tentative plan with the chair and vice chair.
The one question I do have for Rania, if she's still on the line, is what was her length of time for each commission that she supported and served?
I'm happy to answer that. So in San Francisco, it's a little bit weird. Most have been about 2 years, just so you know. San Francisco was a year, and then Ed Lee, the mayor, passed away. We had the shift from the Obama administration to the Trump administration. So how do I explain this? The texture of the contract even changed, like the work pre-Trump first time round and then post. So that was interesting. Oakland was also 2 years. I started as a contractor there. Again, that was under unusual situations. I work well under stress, surprisingly. We went into COVID, of course, and Oakland had to revise its use of force policy. And so the first year I spent doing nothing but working with that ad hoc on that process of revising the use of force policy with the community. All in, I think I've got about 10 years experience. I started in 2016. So I've got 10 years of this experience. I've also done work directly with the federal DOJ. I was their strategist on the hate crimes grant initiative. So I used to help community groups strategize how to do the most of their grants and how to make the most of their money, and also figure out if they didn't have very much money, how are they going to get their work done? So I'm happy to submit my resume. I'm also happy to draft a scope that we can edit. I find it, look, my passion is really people, and it's making sure that your community is safe, and it's making sure that you know how to do that. So whether that's hourly or a contract or however, that's really what's important to me. So I hope that answers the question and some.
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay, so next item up is discussion regarding the process for review update. Go ahead.
Through the chair, we did have one hand go up last minute, if you're willing to hear them for this item. Carol Heppy, you have the floor. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, hello again. I feel like I came into the game at the last inning, and I don't know what happened prior to this. I read this on the agenda, engaging Ms. Adwan to support POAC. That doesn't tell me anything. I looked for more information, a resume, some support material, who she is, what her job will be, how we got to this point with her up to now. She has a lot of information, sounds very interesting, but where did she come from? Who brought her in? Have you guys had any input? I don't know, from the comments, it sounds like you haven't even seen her resume. You've had contact with her, and some of you've articulated that you've been impressed with her. She sounds very impressive, but I really, I really feel like I don't know what her role's going to be, so I can't even tell you what I feel like. And maybe I'm the only one, but if there's anybody else watching this, anybody in the community, do they have information I don't? I wish, could somebody do a little introduction of what this support person is and who brought her in and what are her kind of like overview or his overview going to be? And I definitely think the commissioners got to step up. You need to look at this person's resume, have a discussion. Like Dr. Sessions said, maybe meet with her. A couple of you meet with her and really delve into little. I mean, one of you asked her, you didn't even know how long she'd been with in her past jobs. I, I, I don't see how you could possibly make a decision tonight. I think you need to do a little bit more research and look at other alternatives, maybe even do an RFP for this person. But at this point, I think it would be neglectful for you to hire her based on what I've seen. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think at this point, we like to make a request for the chair and the vice chair to meet with Rania.
That's fine. Is that any opposed to that? Okay, great. Yes, that's what we'll schedule.
I just want to clarify, before engaging or as part of the engagement? And do we need to make a motion for this?
So it would be, a recommendation of the commission. So if the commission is interested in engaging the services, and again, the commission has, and perhaps the speaker did miss the nuance of this, Ms. Adwan provided some of the expert training to the commission. So you can see her interaction with the commission online on the trainings that are all posted online. And to answer the question, we had reached out for recommendations of people to provide some of the training because we were looking for experts, as we spoke before. Ms. Adwan was actually recommended by the California Department of Justice. So they did provide her name as one of the people that they knew had experience in this realm and recommended that we investigate engaging her in some of this work, both in the training and certainly her name came up again when we were talking about people who could help you get started, if you want to call it that, and some of the things that she just talked about in her item before you. But certainly, if you want to have a separate conversation with her about those services and get a copy of her more detailed resume, she did provide that to the commission during the training. She provided, all of her background information to you when we did do that, the 3, I think, trainings that she provided.
In answering the question, she provided training to us already. She stated what her background was, and she provided training, and I think, without a doubt, we were all very impressed. That's not to say that we shouldn't engage other people for other trainings. We can look at that, but I think that the co-chair and I should get together with her and find out what training she could provide for us, and it's a good place to get started. So.
And if I may add, in response to Commissioner Yoon's question, by engagement here, what we really mean is establishing an agreement with her through which she would get paid. So we're quite a bit upstream of that, right? So what Ms. Adwan could provide in a conversation with the chair and vice chair is essentially a proposed scope, schedule, and budget, and then they could provide some input. Time permitting before the mid-year process, we could bring that back to the full commission to get your input on. But basically what we need from her at this point is a proposal of some form. So no, we wouldn't be engaging her until, the money would need to be appropriated by the city council and go through all that. So we're just having a kind of an exploratory conversation at this point.
Yeah, is there any other discussion on the trainings? Thank you. So the next item is a discussion regarding the process review for updated police department policies. Is there any public comment on that?
Through the chair, we do not have any members of the public signed up for this item, but I do have a timer reflected on the top left corner of your screens for interested parties who would like to sign up for this item.
And Deputy Chief Knight has a proposal for how to share and get the commission's input on updated policies. So if you would, Deputy Chief Knight.
Good evening, Commission members. Bob Knight, Deputy Chief of Police, here as your police liaison. Really happy I've got to go after Ms. Adwan because I do think that policy recommendations are very important, and it can get a bit unwieldy with multiple commission members. So first, I just wanted to kind of talk about our policies, our policy manual, the software system that we use, and some of the different buckets of policy changes that you may run into. So we use Lexipol. That is a software company that over 12,000 police agencies across the United States and other countries utilize. That is a hub for your policies. They have a team of lawyers and police practice experts that give recommendations on what make sure your policies are best practice. They're in line with current case law, legislative updates, and things like that. Some large agencies have like a research and development unit and staff within that do that work. Most mid-sized to small agencies, that's just something that's so far outside the scope of that they could keep up with. So Lexipol has become very common, but it is fully customizable to your department. When they give recommendations on policy changes or different language, you don't have to accept it. I wouldn't recommend to not accept a legislative change or a change in the law, obviously, but it is still, the onus is on the agency to click the button accept or decline on all of those things. You can also customize the language to make it completely agency specific. So there is a lot of wiggle room there. But Ms. Adwan brings up a good point in that the framework for that in the ordinance allows for you as the commission to look at every policy change that we make, and you have 45 days to give us recommendations on what you think. That can become a bit of a big workflow for you guys, and I think it's something that's very important, but it's something that you should give some strong mindfulness of how you're going to frame that and how you're going to structure that. Just to give you a little bit, again, I'll talk about the different types of policies, and I know Commissioner Yoon, you asked about kind of where are we at in terms of what we're looking at right now, and that will vary over time. But first, to start, you're going to have, I'd say, about 3 buckets of policies. You have the first one, which is kind of the easiest. It's a new policy. Like, we have no policy on it already, and we want to create, or Lexipol recommends us create a new policy on this particular thing. That's pretty easy because nothing exists. There's no revisions. There's no edits. So we have currently 5 policies in Lexipol that they are recommending new policies on. I'll give you an example. One of those policies is a policy on the use of facial recognition software. We don't use facial recognition software, so we would likely not bring that before the commission as a possible new policy, right? Another type of policy is a revised policy. You can revise policies for a variety of reasons to keep up with best practices, to change a different protocol or a procedure, and a lot of variety of other changes that you may want to change a policy for. That's going to be where it gets in kind of the nuanced, different ideas and the way to word things. And then you have the kind of the no-brainer. These are legislative updates. These are the ones that I talked about last meeting where they kind of come towards the end of the year when you get into October, November, and then all of a sudden Lexipol is going to push out a whole bunch of beginning of year, January 1 updates. So those will be kind of, I don't want to say no-brainers, but you kind of have to do those. And another is case law updates. So if there's different cases that the Supreme Court or the California Supreme Court find that kind of change the way we have to do police work, those are also changes that are made in those. So those will be a little bit, I think, a little bit less work on your part. New policy, I think that's mid-level work because it is our policy to create from the ground up, although Lexipol will give you a template of what they think it should look like. But the hardest one is those revised policies. We currently have 4 policies. So we have 11 policies total that we're dealing with that are in a holding pattern for POAC to address. 5 are new policies. 4 are updated policies that need to be revised. One of those is the complaints policy. That will be the first policy that comes to you guys. And 2 policies, they're kind of joined to the new policies because they're asking, Lexipol is recommending that you delete one policy and replace it with a new policy, so if that makes sense. So those 5 are kind of, 2 of those are joined together in an add delete. So again, just wanted to kind of explain to you the process of policy and taking that kind of input and the review of policies. But I do really think that there should be a larger conversation. And again, I don't want to say we're in no rush, but I think before I start sending you guys policies and you're on the 45-day clock, I do think there's some value in having a discussion of what that workflow looks like. I don't know if you attach that to Ms. Adwan in a conversation you have with her, but I just kind of wanted to say I don't want to start you guys on a clock and then all of a sudden we start rapid firing back and forth different ideas, and then I kind of have this unwieldy document about what am I going to do here? So obviously the complaints policy is a little different. We're on kind of a time crunch there, so I think that might be the first one we take a first crack at it. The other 10, we can kind of maybe take a pause and then figure out when that can be. I think the discussion was to have this as a standing agenda item of policy. I don't know if we're still on that. Sometimes I can come to you and go, hey, no policy updates this meeting. Or I can have pre-sent some of those policies. The last thing I'll say about Lexipol is they give 2 things. So they give what's called the policy release notes, and that is just basically like cliff notes of what they are intending for you to change, but it doesn't actually show what you're going to change. We have to actually go in the system and click each time when there's a policy recommendation to change. You have to click accept or decline, accept or decline. So that isn't really conducive to this back and forth process with the commission. So I'll have to talk to our staff and figure out what the best way to do that is. We might have to just go through that process and say accept, decline, and then present to you what we think is the best practice with combining it with those release notes so you can see what the issue was. I don't know if I can give you just a red line version of it. It used to say this, now it says this. I can do that, but we have to actually go and make the changes first, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. I can also give the release notes ahead of time, but again, that's not going to give you content. It's going to give you concepts of what they want to change. So again, I'll leave it there and just kind of open it up for further discussion if you'd like.
Mr. Chair, just a point of clarification. I think as the work on the settlement agreement goes forward with the California Department of Justice, some of that work involves modifications to policy. And one of them is, and the one that is now coming up, that the deputy chief responded or alluded to or straight up stated, is the complaints policy, which will be the first one you will receive. But you are also receiving that one well into its process. So, the work with Cal DOJ has gone on and on and on before you actually got to the point where we are now, where we're going to be starting to bring you policies. So I tend to characterize those as our custom policies. So there is a relatively potentially fairly significant deviation, if you want to call it that, between what Lexipol would put out relative to complaints and what our policy, after having been vetted through the settlement agreement process, is going to look like. And so the policy that you will be receiving at your next meeting is what I believe, which will be a special meeting, will be that policy that's gone through that vetting process already. I think it's important for you and the community to know that, because one of the processes through the Department of Justice and our policy review as a result of the settlement agreement is that this body forms an input body, or a body through which the public can give input into that policy. So there are 2 stages of input for the public on those policies, those what I call DOJ implicated policies that the departmental team has been working on. And those will be this body as the first body. You will make a recommendation for any changes you see or any questions that you have, but you'll also be taking input from the public for those. After that, there will be a second input point for the public, though, and that second input point for the public will be are you calling it a town hall?
Town hall presentation, yes.
Okay, so there will be a town hall presentation that the department will run to take input from the public on that policy as well. And then after that, it goes through the process of amendment to make any changes, and then back to the California Department of Justice. So just wanted to make sure that everybody understood there's a pretty large difference between the policies that are going through that Cal DOJ process, and Lexipol looks at something and says, hey, we want to make an update to a standard policy. They're a little bit apples and oranges, because the complaint policy gets this sort of full vetting and a very robust process that involves multiple touch points, where the Lexipol policies could be as simple as change word, this word in this paragraph and that word in that paragraph, as a suggestion from that company for a best practice. So they're really very different. There may be Lexipol policies you look at and you say, yeah, I don't even know if we have to talk about those. But the Cal DOJ process and the policies that are being amended through that process, I guess theoretically they allow for a pass. You could say we don't have any input, but you would still need to hold those community meetings for that public input. So I think they're a little bit different. So wanted to make sure that that point was really the DC described kind of 3 different types of things, but I just wanted to add a little bit of additional detail to that Cal DOJ versus Lexipol and the level of scrutiny that are applied to them, those policies, before they ever come to you. Because there's a pretty significant difference to how that rolls preceding its presentation to this body.
Question for the chief. I just stumbled on an article a couple days ago about the Ninth Circuit overruled a gun thing about open carry in small cities, and I assume that affects your policy. And I'm sure it's going to be appealed or something. So, when does your policy change?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that's one of the things we rely on Lexipol, because a case decision, whatever that case decision is, you gave one example, there can be appeals, there can be lots of other court process that occurs after that, and we would not make a policy change until those case law decisions are final. So that's why we do rely upon the legal team of Lexipol to determine when those things are to be changed, because again, they're going to be changing it for potentially 12,000 other police agencies across the country. So using your example, yeah, you would have to wait until the whole judicial process is complete.
So our legal department makes the final decision?
You say that again, I couldn't hear you.
The city attorney's office would make the decision when to change the policy?
I mean, we could always consult with the city attorney, but these are our police department's policies that we go off of.
Thank you.
So just to clarify on that, we weigh in when requested and only really on the legality of the policy or a change in the law. So the department proposes its own policies. Those that go through the Cal DOJ process have this huge vetting process that occurs. But with regard to Lexipol or anything else, we weigh in when asked. If we're asked about, so for instance, in your example, where there's like a pending change in the law, we would help watch that along with Lexipol, generally speaking, as it moves forward. But again, whether we make an interim change is driven largely by the department making that request. And again, because every policy that gets changed will come before this body or is proposed for a change, there's another level here now with all of you to weigh in on those changes as they come forward.
Thank you.
I have a question. So, a comment and a question. So, I know on the onset of establishing this committee, one of the meetings that we had, we were given a task to approve certain policies. Even though we weren't trained at that time, I felt like we wasn't trained. We wasn't at a point in this committee to where we can give our insight or understanding of what was taking place. And so there was policies from the department that you guys gave us, and they said, you guys said basically, these are some of the policy changes that we've made, and we want you guys to vote on it. And, you know, I really didn't feel comfortable with that because we didn't have any, no say-so in that. We didn't get a chance to evaluate the policy. We didn't get a chance to really look at what was being changed as far as the language in the policy is concerned. And then we had a situation to where it went to committee and it disappeared. It went to city council and then it disappeared for a minute. We didn't hear anything about it. So I know that there's suggested policy, right, change, like the department gets together and say, okay, well, we need to change these things up or whatever else. And then you have policy that's being changed on a governmental level. I want to know, how are we going to be a part of the process to say yay or nay when it comes to policy change with Vallejo? I know that there's some things on a governmental level that comes down from the courts or whatever else, and things has to change. But then on a city level, there's things that's changing in the policy that we're not too much aware of. And I want to know how much power do we have in looking at that policy, coming together as a dais to discuss that policy and whether or not it's good for the city.
Sure. So a couple points of clarification preceding the direct answer to your question. So we never brought any policies before the POAC preceding, actually no policy has been in front of you. But I understand the confusion because what was in front of you was some suggestions of changes or modifications to the ordinance. So that could have read a little bit like, potentially like a policy change. Those changes went from you. You frankly heard them, but there was no formal action taken by the body. You're correct. That then carried forward to the city council, who declined to make those changes. And then there was a further pause because that then had to go back through the PERB process, which is essentially a court process, like a court process, because there had been a PERB complaint about those ordinance changes. In the final analysis, I want to be clear that everybody understands no changes were made to the ordinance. The council did not make any, and the PERB matter was settled as our notice to you went out, letting you know that it was settled without changes to the ordinance. So I think a speaker earlier tonight said you should look at the original version versus the current version. There are no differences. So I think that may be what you're remembering. Sounds like that's what you're remembering.
Yes.
So policy change, well, an ordinance change too, but policy changes that we're talking about this evening are on this agenda. All of them will come before you to weigh in. You can choose not to, meaning it's an option for the commission. If you think a policy change, like a Lexipol policy change, is insignificant and you don't feel like it requires a full weigh-in, you as a body can decide that. The majority, but you as a body will vote, no, we're not interested in going through that with a lot of detail. You might decide you want to go through all of them with detail. But per the ordinance, absolutely everyone comes before the body for you to make a recommendation on those policy changes. So there won't be a situation, now there might be a situation if it's a policy that's being worked on with the Department of Justice, as a for instance, where your input will go back and get through more vetting, that could result in some delay in the implementation of that policy, but that's the process. You will give your input, whatever it is, that input will be carried forward into what the department says, what changes should be, and then if those changes are made, it will go back through the vetting process with the Department of Justice. Not true of Lexipol policies, but yes, true of those that are going through the reform process. Does that help you to understand? So you'll get them all, is the answer to your question.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, Chief Knight, I have a couple of questions for you. One, in today's world, people need to visualize what you're talking about. So, like, is there a matrix, like, where does the community get involved? Because you named Lexipol being one. I'm very familiar with Lexipol. The legislative changes, and then the revised changes and the new policies. I think for purposes of the commission and the community, if it can carefully be outlined in terms of where the community, the commission, and the DOJ are involved, Lexipol, where it maybe is just, and correct me if I'm wrong, if it's just a commission involved, I think that would make it very clear for everyone what the process is, so one, we don't run into an overrun of the 45-day response that we're required to adhere to, and that way we don't tie you up. And then the other question I had has to do with, you said Lexipol is a software, and this is a clarifying question. You're trying to figure out how to get it to us and without the red line changes so we can respond to you quickly? This is on the Lexipol piece of it.
Yeah, so all of our department policies are housed within the Lexipol system, every policy. I was just trying to explain the process of actually when you make the changes to policy. So your policy, if it's an existing policy and you're going to make a revision, Lexipol makes recommendations. You can either accept them or decline them. You don't have to. Or, well, I give you a third option. You can type in your own content. Right?
That's the part that I didn't catch. Okay.
So what I was saying is I was kind of proposing to the commission a possible problem that I'm identifying, which is as a police department, we almost have to do the accept, decline, add content change, and then bring it before you guys. But you guys aren't going to necessarily be then part of that process, which I don't think the ordinance requires that. It just requires us to bring the ordinance to you to get your feedback. I'm possibly contemplating some kind of release notes or some kind of short summary, maybe just bullet points of things that we did, but I'm also trying to make it as automated as possible because these are things we're going to be doing all the time throughout the year. I'm not trying to make it overly burdensome for you or for my staff as well, right? So I'm trying to find a way that kind of strikes a balance, but when we do identify some of those very important policies, I will try to do my best to kind of identify those to you guys that we're working with DOJ or something that's maybe very contentious. But there are also going to be some of those that are just run-of-the-mill, kind of just normal everyday changes.
Yeah. Okay, that's helpful, but also, can you work on that matrix piece too, for the community as well as for the commissioners?
Sure.
Thanks.
All right, is there any more discussion on the department policies?
I just had one more question. Is it to say that when, like on a Lexipol policy, that you guys will update or create a new policy on, from when that's initiated, this committee will have 45 days to give recommendation on that? Yeah, go ahead, thanks.
It's actually from when it comes to you, not when it's initiated. So it can't blow past you because that doesn't start, the time doesn't start to count until you actually have it. So it's not when he changes it or the department changes it or suggests the change, or when it goes to the California Department of Justice and that vetting process. It's when you get it for your input point and you're taking the public input on it. So yeah, it'll be well identified. You'll know exactly when that time period comes, and even to the point of staff, my suggestion would be that staff identifies the period for you as part of asking you about it. Okay, your time period is this, so you are dead set. The secretary can remind you, that kind of thing occurs. So there will be definitely not an intent to not let you inadvertently not comment on something you intended to comment on.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah, thank you. So then I wonder if we could, in addition to the standing agenda item where we're advised of the policy updates and changes, then on the subsequent meeting that we have 30 days later, offer our response and recommendation in a standing item to, because it will be within that 45-day time period.
It will, and that will depend, I think, a little bit on the policy and where you are as you're vetting it with the public. You may hold your comments and say, hey, we want to think about it some more and provide ours next month, or what have you. I guess the complaints one is, the timing got really weirdly hung up on this complaints policy. The department was trying to put it out, I don't even remember when, what was the date? You were trying to put it out in
June.
October, I think, was the last date there was, late last year. Well, you weren't stacked up yet. It just weirdly hit here that your activation, for lack of a better word, and this policy crossing that public input line intersected. And we had the discussion with the California Department of Justice about, hey, if we wait another 2 weeks or whatever it is, we're going to be able to hold that meeting with this commission actually giving its formal input. And that was desirable. So that's how you got this intersection of something that was so far down the road, but yet you were just about to hit where you are now. And it felt like it important, given that's an intersection with the public complaints policy. It doesn't get more intersected with the public than that. And having this body where those complaints ultimately have meaning and come to you, looking at the policy and weighing in seemed really important. And so we kind of held it back a little bit while we were doing that work. I mean, there were other reasons why it wasn't ready too, so I don't want to imply it was just to bring before the commission, but that intersection just fortuitously happened in a way that brings it before you, but maybe with a little bit of a tighter shot clock than would normally be applicable, because it's already been held up for quite a while pending carrying it forward. But you'll get the opportunity to weigh in however you need to, and however is desirable for you. Staff doesn't want to interrupt that process in any way because it's an important process. So yes, you'll get reminded, and you'll get reminded again, I think, in each of those processes. And maybe we can figure out a way to set up an automatic reminder that comes to your emails so you really can't forget. We'll have to talk about, I don't know how that would work, but there's probably a way to do it.
Through the chair, I just, one of the last things, and it made me think about, I think some of these policies will be kind of that two-meeting process. I think some of them might be just that meeting. You guys will have got it part of your packet, you'll have read it, and you go, okay, I don't see a lot here. I think that what that framework is kind of important to me. Maybe I can work through the chair and the vice chair to kind of, maybe through Ms. Adwana, that's a discussion to have there in terms of what does that policy feedback framework look like? Because it's going to vary, right? So some of those you're going to want to take probably close to your 45 days before you give those recommendations. But I think that getting the community input is valuable on the front meeting, and potentially when it's discussed again at that standing item on the back end, I think that will be more than sufficient for us. I think just how you guys frame your feedback to me and your recommendations will be important for us to make that decision. So.
Okay, is there, that pretty much covers the discussion on policy changes. The next item is...
Through the chair, we do have a member of the public that wanted to speak on this item. Carol Heppy, please unmute yourself. You have the floor.
Yeah, hello again. Sorry about this guys, but this is something I'm very passionate about what you're doing. So I'm really concerned about, well, not really, but because I don't know the gist of it, but I'm concerned about this commission getting weighed down by these external policy suggestions or best practices or whatever that's going to be coming through, and you have to look at them all and you have to sign off on them all. And I'm getting the feeling that that's going to, I don't want to say waste, but use up a lot of your very valuable time. So maybe a way to curb that is if you formed a couple subcommittees, one to deal with the DOJ policies and one to deal with the other external policies that are going to be popping through. Because I think you have much more important work to do than evaluating other people's work. Those things tend to trickle down in the big picture anyway, eventually. So that's just one comment. And my other comment is there'll be another kind of policy that you guys will be addressing that I think will be much more important. And that's things are going to come up through the complaint process and the policies within our department process. Things like use of pepper spray, use of force, use of a baton, use of a flashlight as a weapon, reckless driving, how the department uses canines in making arrests and searches. That's just off the top of my head, the kind of policies that could come through here. Policies take a very long time. They require they have to go through the whole Police Officers Association meet and confer process, and you're gonna have to. Those are going to be really important policies because they're going to be specific to our city and our type of problems that we have with our department. So try to figure out how not to get weighed down by all this external policy stuff, because I feel like we're going to have a lot of our own stuff coming through eventually. Thank you.
No other speakers at this time, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just have one more question, and I don't know if this will be a burden, but sitting on a previous commission, when we did receive policies, there was input from the community stating that they did not have enough time to view the policy. And I know it's posted or it comes with the agenda, but since we have that central web page, is it possible as soon as we know that a policy is coming forward to address it in the public's, on the website so that the public may have an opportunity? We ran into a lot of issues where the public felt they didn't get enough time to review it. It pressured the commission to kind of fumble through the policy review process. And so I don't know if that's an option that we can ask for, to have that posted on the website so that we can get that input directly, so that we as a body can make those, either accept or review them or add them to the policy revisions, just to speed up that process. I anticipate that there will be people who say, I didn't get to see it, I don't understand it, and it does bog the process down.
Yeah, I'm not opposed. I don't know how much gap in time there will be from when we actually know what the proposed changes are going to be compared to when your agenda is published. But happy to put it on the website as soon as we do know. It will be in the agenda packet available for them to review for that entire 45 days. But again, open to suggestions on the framework of what that may look like. I just do know that this, we had 9 policies the last time you guys met. We now have 11. The longer we wait to start kind of taking some of these on, it just builds up more and more and more. So happy to kind of come up with that frame. Maybe we want to take 2 or 3, just to start and see how the workflow works. But I kind of really am looking to you guys to kind of understand what a framework will look like, whether that's through to going through 1 or 2 of them, or us deciding ahead of time with some kind of visual flow chart or something like that. But again, I don't want to start too soon, but I don't want to wait too long, if that means.
Well, I know to Ms. Hep's point about looking at policy, but my thought on that is, in order for us to effectively address a complaint, we need to know the policy. That's just logical to me. But I think at this point, once we get fluid in terms of the process, because we are still in our infancy stages, so we want to make sure that we do this correctly, that maybe later on, to her proposal, we can do subcommittees. But I think it's important that as a commission as a whole, that we all study the policies, because we may get complaints, and if we don't look at the policies, our goal is not to make any mistakes up here, but to respond to the needs of the community. So I think it's important to review the policies. And we knew when we got on this commission, we were going to do a lot of reading. We were told that. So, and police work is very complicated, I get it. But I think I'd rather err on the side of caution and read the policy in its entirety so we can get it right the first time and not have a problem down the road.
Okay. The next item is a discussion of the meeting room and using this chamber rather than the...
Yes, thank you. So I was happy that the commission made the decision to use the council chambers, but on the fly when we were making that decision during the last meeting, we hadn't run down all of the unintended impacts of that. And one thing that we realized as we continue to think through that more is it's actually challenging to alternate with the Planning Commission, because, for instance, if they continue an item, it needs to be heard again in the same location, or it needs to be renoticed. So it's complicated to alternate with the Planning Commission. We have identified 2 other potential regular meeting dates that wouldn't have that complication. For both of these 2 dates, the POAC could just use the council chambers for every single meeting by asking a different advisory board or commission to move to the Vallejo room. So I handed out, just so it's in front of everybody, piece of paper with those 2 options. There's kind of a quote best option and second option. They're both essentially equally viable, I think. The first is to make the regular meeting the second Thursday of each month, regular meeting date, and the other option is to have the regular meeting date be the 4th Monday of each month. So I'm happy to have the commission discuss that and to receive direction from you all of which you would, if you'd like to move, which of those you'd like to have as your regular meeting date.
So either of these options works for me. I just, what does other people?
I would suggest the fourth Monday, the second option.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, good. So show of hands, does the second option work for other people? Say again?
Are you looking at the best option or the second option? How are you doing this?
So I'm asking about the second option, if it works for everybody.
It does not work for me.
Does not work for you, okay. Does the first option work for you? Okay.
So, second option.
Talking to the mic there.
No, I was more or less, are we going to just vote first option, second option, right?
Okay, let's vote on the.
All right.
All right, so does the
Yeah.
first option work for everybody? Does not work for you?
Well, if it's first option, I'm going with the crowd, however it goes.
First option seems to work for you.
First or second, because I mean,
Maybe it's, yeah, I think, well, how about we have a motion for one of the two, and we just have a vote on that. So somebody want to make a motion for either option one or option two, and then you all can vote on that?
Okay,
I'll make the motion for the first option.
Okay, so that would be the second Thursday of each month?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
okay.
All right, so show of hands, all those, okay, second? Sorry, do we have a
She needs a
second
second.
for
Second that.
the second Thursday? Okay,
Derek
so
I
it's
second the motion, yeah.
Derek
So-
seconded.
moved by Qualls, second by Roy, and then ayes, what, show of hands?
second option?
This is
First
just,
option.
We're talking about,
First option.
we're talking about the
second
first option on the Thursday.
why? Oh.
Because that's the law.
Okay, we'll do okay, we're going to do a roll call on this second Thursday. Okay,
Second
we're going to do a roll call of yes or no on the second Thursday. Commissioner Qualls,
Yes.
Commissioner Sykes,
Yes.
sorry, Vice Chair, Chair,
Yes.
Commissioner Yoon,
Nay.
nay. Commissioner Roy,
Yes.
Commissioner Hybels,
Yes.
Commissioner Clark. Nay. All right, is there a motion and a second for, I mean, that,
I make a motion for the second option.
I'll second.
moved by Lewis, second by Yoon. Commissioner Qualls,
Nay.
Vice Chair Sykes,
Yes.
Chair Lewis.
Yes.
I know we're going to get to the same place. Commissioner Yoon,
Yes.
Commissioner Roy,
Yes.
Commissioner Hybels,
Yes.
and Commissioner Clark.
I concede. We'll just do the Thursday. I'll make it work.
Okay. Well, so we've had two motions. One of them had 5 yeas, 1 nay. That was, 5 yeses and 2 nays. That was for the second Thursday. We had 6 yeses for the fourth Monday, and so the fourth Monday has more votes. No, we don't. We have.
Isn't it even?
Oh, sorry. I
One
thought-
person voted nay for each.
Oh, it is even now?
I'm willing to concede for the Thursday, but is it possible instead of start time at 6 to be 6:30 for that second Thursday instead?
I
Or is
make
that
a-
not?
You as a
Absolutely.
body get to pick.
I make a motion, we go 6:30 on the second Thursday.
I second.
Lewis. Sorry, thank you for being patient with my note-keeping here. It's not my everyday gig. Okay, so second Thursday at 6:30. Commissioner Qualls,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sykes,
Yes.
Chair Lewis,
Yes.
Commissioner Yoon,
Begrudgingly, yes.
Commissioner Roy,
Yes.
Commissioner Hybels,
Yes.
Commissioner Clark.
Yes.
Okay. So pardon? Yes, it passes unanimously. The new regular meeting will be the second Thursday at 6:30 PM. That's that item. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So we move on to the next item, information calendar.
Can I just clarify, so when is the next meeting going to be the 2nd of March, which is?
Yeah. So.
There are
so
no
the-
items.
So that for the next meeting, it would be, we're talking about March, the second Thursday in March.
March 12th.
Okay.
Yes.
Although, as previously discussed, there will likely be a special meeting before that for the complaints policy.
Okay. So on to the next item is the information calendar.
There are no items for the information calendar this evening.
Future agenda items.
We've kind of talked 12A into the ground a little bit already, but that was just to let the commission know that there would be a special meeting. We still don't know what the actual date of that will be, but the goal is sometime in this month, February. So the commission secretary or his designee, I'm assuming, will reach out and poll you for that special date when we get to that spot.
Sure, yes, go ahead.
I'll try to keep this to 30 seconds. I think there's three things that you need for your future agenda. One is making the chief of police a non-voting member or another member of the police department who is empowered to make decisions. I think that would really help your committee. Two, having a monthly update on hiring of the independent auditor and lawyer. And three, establishing a subcommittee to revise your rules and procedures, then POAC votes on it, and then it's being sent to City Council for approval. Your rules and procedures need some upgrades. Thank you.
Thank you.
Isn't that dictated by the ordinance?
What's that?
Isn't that dictated by the ordinance? Or the rules and regulations are dictated by the ordinance? Right, okay.
We were just discussing whether the rules of procedure are, can be modified. I think their default is Rosenberg's meeting rules, and we would need to look into whether that could be modified. But yes, many of the procedures, not the meeting procedures per se, but many of the procedures of the POAC are established in the ordinance. So, but if the city council, or sorry, if the commission wanted to at some point in the future reconsider, the standard rules of procedure, meeting rules, you could do so.
Okay, so we move on to the next item, closed session.
All right, so the commission will now convene in closed session, and will return and report out as appropriate any outcomes of closed session.
I'm sorry, did you do agenda item 12B? Do you have any other future agenda items, or just as staff brings them forward? And again, the commission secretary will be regularly meeting with the chair and vice chair on the agenda items, so it's up to commission if you had some specific items. And you did ask the deputy chief to bring forward what you already requested, so that would be a future agenda item on the policies.
Okay, so if you're ready, we'll now adjourn from motion session and convene in closed session.
Sorry, I have to announce the closed session for
Go
the
for it.
members of the public. Thank you. The commission will meet this evening in closed session with regard to the following items: public employee discipline, dismissal, release pursuant to Government Code Section 54957B1. This item, just to give a little more information to the public, because this is the first one, will be consideration of, in this instance, complaints. They will be discussing complaints, charges relating to 3 identified complaints. A, Citizen Complaint 2026-01. B, Citizen Complaint 2026-03. And C, Citizen Complaint 2026-04. These are confidential information in closed session pursuant to California Penal Code Section 832.5 through 832.8 and Evidence Code Section 1040.
We're supposed to take notes or anything, right? I think we need to address it, because I want to make sure
I'm about ready to resign, to be honest. When Manny said something, I had no clue what he said. I don't have a clue what most people are saying. In fact, I could see the speaker now.
That's a good thing, and congratulations.
He's in the restroom. Yes, so we reconvene and.
I think you have to wait for him to come back from the restroom.
Okay. Okay. I reconvene the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The city council, boy, that's habit, right? The commission did meet in closed session for the reasons indicated on the agenda relating to the 3 complaints. The commission's meeting in this instance was for the commission to provide its recommendation on whether each of those complaints should be investigated by the Internal Affairs Division of the Vallejo Police Department or by an outside investigator. With regard to complaint A, citizen complaint 202601, the commission's recommendation reported out is that it recommends that that complaint be investigated by the Vallejo Internal Affairs Professional Standards Division. With regard to complaint B, citizen complaint 2026-03, the commission made the recommendation that that investigation also be conducted by the Internal Affairs Division, Professional Standards of the Vallejo Police Department. And with regard to complaint C, citizen complaint 2026-04, the commission provided a recommendation that that complaint be investigated by an outside independent investigator. There is no other action to report from this closed session.
And I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.